Oklahoma fans, college football fans, welcome into another special edition of Sooner Sunday Live. We are here to recap, talk about, kind of give our breakdowns of the Auburn win. Yes, it was a win, regardless of what everything on X and social media, regardless of what everyone wants to say about this game, it does go down as a win in the Oklahoma Sooners column. And I, I'm going to start off by saying this: Oklahoma fans have nothing to, Oklahoma as in general, the team, the fans, they have nothing to be ashamed of about how this game went down. We're going to get to it. Some Sooners being cheaters being thrown out there, all of this. And I have seen a lot of Oklahoma fans kind of being sore winners, but you know what? When you win, you're allowed to have these reactions. There's a lot to break down with this game. I will say I'm going to start off right off the bat. We're going to get down to some of the calls, some of the officiating. Officiating was horrible, and the officiating did hurt at some crucial moments for the Auburn Tigers, and I will admit that, and we'll break down some of that. But it's also not as horrible as Auburn wants to make it out to be. I'm having a really hard time finding sympathy for Auburn fans and for Auburn losing this game, acting as if it's only on the officiating. But anyways, we'll get down to some of that because I think Auburn, if Auburn fans are being serious about this or being honest about it, we can kind of look at it both ways. We can recognize that officiating was just horrible. We can call it out for just that. And how do you fix that? Do you go back and replay the game? I would be more than willing to watch this game over again with a better officiating crew, because I think Oklahoma was the better team, regardless of what others think. But anyways, Oklahoma fans, college football fans, welcome in. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching over on X, jump over to YouTube real quick and just go support us over there. Jump over onto YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Join in the live chat. Would love to hear from you guys. Hear your thoughts on what went down yesterday in Norman, Oklahoma, because I will agree. It's one of these wins for Oklahoma that you look at, and I don't feel confident because of certain things that went on in that game. I don't feel confident about how Oklahoma performed. I think Oklahoma looked really sloppy. But overall, you have to look at that and take that in and recognize that, hey, Oklahoma looked really sloppy again, and they still found a way to come out with the win. Now, you can sit here and blame the refs. You can sit here and do all of that. I think that is pathetic of either fan base. Oklahoma fans have done that in the past, and I've said the same thing to them. Back when Oklahoma lost to Oklahoma State and there was a blatant no pass interference call in the end zone that would have sealed the game, I criticized Oklahoma fans for sitting there. It was a horrible call, but you can't ever let it come down to maybe a couple of calls, and I'll break down some of those calls, and we'll get into it. But first, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in the live chat. I'll try to keep my eyes over there and check on that live chat. If you guys have comments, concerns, questions, throw that over there. And then, of course, if you want to help support this channel a little bit further, you can become a member for as low as $2.99 a month. Just scan that QR code down on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, or you can click the link down in the description below to become a member for as low as $2.99 a month. Help us keep on cranking out content. We're giving you guys stuff to watch on Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and even post-game on Saturdays. So if you would like to help us keep on doing that, just consider becoming a member. Otherwise, all super chats and donations will be read live here on the show this morning, this afternoon, whatever it is. We're doing the Sooner Sundays on 8 a.m. last week. I got some recommendations from some of you in the live chat, also on social media, that you guys were telling us, hey, try to do that maybe after church so I can tune in. So we're going to give this a shot. I think Sunday mornings is a little easier for my schedule, but I'm always willing to kind of cope and try to maneuver that around, especially for those of you who are churchgoers as well. But let's get into it. Oklahoma ends up defeating the Auburn Tigers in a battle of defenses. We can for sure say that, a battle of defenses where Oklahoma takes down Auburn 24-17. For those of you who tuned in on the show on Thursday, or if you're an Auburn fan and saw me talking with Mike Gittens, or even an Oklahoma fan, seeing me talk with Mike Gittens, I gave him about that 24-17, 24-18 is what I believe I said on both of those. I know I said 24-18 on our show, and then I got to thinking afterwards, like, did I really say 18? That's kind of a stupid score to give because that's kind of difficult to get to 18 points. I'm not sure how that's going to come down, but no, it just goes to show that this game really did come down to being as weird as I expected it to come down to. This show literally came down to a bunch of weird calls, a bunch of subjective, objective, subjective. I'll have to look up and see which of those two definitions I'm meaning, but very much objective calls. And I think you look at a couple of them. I think we're going to get to all of those. I think you look at the Oklahoma fumble that ended up not being a fumble. We'll talk about that. That was very objective, depending on how you want to look at it, depending on what lenses you're wearing. I suppose maybe it could change your view on how that one actually went down. And then I think there was also some other things like later on, Oklahoma had the fumble out of bounds that they called an incomplete pass and then went back to overturn. We'll talk about that as well. And there's a lot. There's a lot that we could really break down and get into it and talk about how the officiating really did affect this game in a lot of ways. And I agree with Auburn fans in that the officiating affected this game in many ways, and there were many bad calls that Auburn fans are pointing out. There's not a lot of those bad calls that Oklahoma fans could be pointing out. And so I think that's a little interesting, is that I guess when you're on the winning side of things, you just don't really care. You move on and you forget about it because I don't know. And I even think even after the fact with, a statement made by the SEC officiating as well, I think that's, there's some things that we can look at and we can break down. And like I said, we will get to that. But first, I want to break down the game first, get into the meat of what actually went on in this game, because I think this was a really good game on both sides. I think, you have to you have to give kudos to Auburn and how they played. I think they played a phenomenal game. I really do. I think they played a really good game. I think they had a good game plan. They came in there trying to shut Mateer down. They came in there really cutting off the back end. They weren't letting receivers get past their secondary, and I think that was a really good game plan from Auburn. I think Auburn looked like a really good team. I think they solidified the fact that Auburn fans, regardless of how this game turned out, I think Auburn fans can look at this game and say, "Hey, we hung in there with a good Oklahoma team." Now, Auburn made some mistakes, and you have to take a look at those mistakes and try to hope to fix them. Obviously, as a fan base, you can't do much, but as a team, you hope that there's some fixing. But overall, it was a good game plan going into this game. You tried to shut down Mateer. He was just too slippery, too good. You were only able to get him down in the backfield once. You shut down the run game and made Oklahoma one-dimensional, and that's why John Mateer struggled so much, because Auburn knew that they were able to shut down that run game with only maybe only stacking the box with 4, not even stacking the box, and at times stacking it with one extra guy in there, but not having to do too much in stopping the run game. And so Auburn felt really confident about that. They were able to shut down that run game basically completely and force Oklahoma to have to pass the ball. And if you're forcing them to pass the ball and it's going to be a pass, there's a lot of extra things you can throw out there to really confuse the quarterback, to slow the quarterback down. And so Auburn did a really good job of just that. I really do think that Auburn had a pretty good game plan overall. Now, there are a couple of narratives that I want to shut down. Obviously, we'll get to the officiating one. We'll get to first the narrative that Jackson Arnold had a better game than John Mateer. I think you could look at the first half and say, man, Jackson Arnold outplayed John Mateer in the first half. And that is a true statement. That is a factual statement. I have no rebuttal to that. But to say that Jackson Arnold just had an overall better game than John Mateer, I think is a little silly. Now, I will say Jackson Arnold looked like the Jackson Arnold, at least in the first half. Jackson Arnold overall in this game looked like the Jackson Arnold that Oklahoma fans were hoping to have gotten out of him last season. he didn't provide that for Oklahoma. Instead, what you saw out of Jackson Arnold was sitting in the pocket too long and holding onto the ball too long, getting sacked too often, and maybe creating some of those sacks. And John Mateer, honestly, if you go back and look at it, and I think Greg McElroy even broke this down a couple of times, where John Mateer was doing the same thing, stepping back too much and kind of creating some pressure rather than just stepping up into the pocket. So, not completely criticizing Jackson Arnold, but you saw why Oklahoma fans weren't happy with Jackson Arnold in that second half. Now, I want to break down the entirety of the game. Jackson Arnold had 66% completion percentage, John Mateer 67, comparable. I will say, when you talk about the better game of the two, I look at how John Mateer closed the game out and how Jackson Arnold closed the game out. Jackson Arnold got his team out to a lead and ended up crumbling, ended up staying in the pocket too long, holding onto the ball too long, not making a decision quick enough, and causing his team to fail in the end. You can't keep on taking sacks. You can't keep on taking tackles for loss. You can't keep on getting the ball batted down or overthrowing a player. And John Mateer closed out the game going 16 completions out of his last 17 attempts. I mean, that is to me what sets him apart and why he is a better player, because he looked at the first half and recognized that he was creating pressure. He looked at the first half and recognized that, hey, there's openings here that I'm not finding. I'm not finding the check down quick enough when that pressure is coming at me, and I'm trying to make something that's not there. And John Mateer fixed that, going 16 of his last 17 attempts. That's the difference between Jackson Arnold and John Mateer in this game. Now, I think Jackson Arnold showed a lot of good things. I think he's going to go forward and start to keep on improving. And you know what? He didn't turn the ball over. There was a couple of times where maybe he should have turned the ball over, or at least the defense should have forced a turnover, but he didn't turn the ball over. So, I think there's some really good things out of Jackson Arnold that I see in this game. That where I think he kept his poise until that pressure started coming in a little too heavy. It was almost like deer in the headlights, PTSD happening, where he just shut down and he allowed too much of that. And you can blame some of that on the offensive line. I think the offensive line did a really good job. And here's the shocking thing too. So I was looking at some of the PFF grades. The PFF grades for Oklahoma pass blocking, 80.3%, and I think rightfully so. I think the pass blocking did a really good job for John Mateer. And again, when he was getting in those pressures, he was stepping back too far, not stepping up into the pocket. And for Auburn, they were at 79.5 pass block grading, and you could say, now how in the world do you give them almost 80% PFF? How on earth could you do that? But you actually look at it and see, again, what I was just mentioning a moment ago, where Jackson Arnold put himself into a lot of those pressures. Jackson Arnold forced himself to be sacked a lot of those times by holding onto the ball too long. And that pass blocking was really doing just fine for Auburn. I think Auburn they weren't pass blocking poorly. Now, they couldn't run block, but that's just because, again, Oklahoma's run block defense, that front line, they are good at that. And Auburn thought that they could run for 200 plus yards. Well, hey, if Michigan could do that, then we could exploit that over Oklahoma. That just wasn't the case. Now, going on to compare these two quarterbacks and how they performed in this game, Jackson Arnold, 220 passing yards, most of that coming from the first half, and then 271 yards for John Mateer, most of that coming in the second half for him. And so, again, it's how you close out the game, and that's where I'm leaning John Mateer. Now, it was a very comparable game. I think at the very least you could say these two quarterbacks played a very similar game. I will say, going on, 7.5 yard average for John Mateer on his completion percentage, or on his completions, and 6.9, almost 7 for Jackson Arnold. Again, comparable. Both of them had a touchdown. Again, comparable. But then the 29 yards rushing that John Mateer had, where Oklahoma didn't have to design as many run plays for him. Now, he did kind of scramble and not make much of his scrambles. Again, kudos to Auburn for shutting that down. But then again, John Mateer, when it matters the most, finding a way to get himself into the end zone, the shiftiness, the vision that he has to get himself across that end zone line and being able to get in there. That's truly what sets these two apart. Now, to say that Jackson Arnold had a better game, no. If you want to say they had a comparable game or that they looked similar in this game, you look at those two stat lines, and 100% I give that to you. I would agree that both of these teams quarterbacks had a very similar game. But I don't think you could sit here and tell me that one was really better than the other. I really don't see that. Now, getting in again, I like to look at the PFF grades and really breaking it down and seeing where they were at. John Mateer was just the better of the two. He really was. I think in many ways he was just the better of the two quarterbacks, and a lot of that again was because of Jackson Arnold putting himself into bad positions. And then again, there was a couple of overthrown passes, a couple of bad passes. I think even the pass interference, which I know is controversial, towards the end, the one I know there's the one where Gentry Williams tackles Cam Coleman. No one's arguing that shouldn't have been called, but you look at it. First of all, in real time, it wasn't as blatant as I think the slow-mo Twitter posters like to make it out to be. That's one thing I'll say. It was pass interference. I'm not arguing that. The ref had his back to it, though. So, I mean, you can blame the refs, but he did have to get out of the way of the play. Yeah, I mean, it should have been called. No doubt about that one. The one on Oklahoma that basically gave Auburn their touchdown play. I mean, I don't know how else you want to describe that one or look at that one, but the one where Cortland Guillory, I believe it was, got called in the left corner of the end zone. That really was not pass interference. It was an overthrown ball, but it should have probably been holding, and that's what a lot of Oklahoma fans are not admitting. So it is a difference in penalties, and so I will give you that. It's not a spot foul. It's actually the previous play. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back and see exactly where Auburn was at on the field to know exactly how that one would have actually played out. But anyways, I mean, John Mateer, 73.2 PFF grading in his passing, where Jackson Arnold was only a 63.3. And again, I know that they're not always completely accurate on PFF, and you can disagree with PFF as much as you would like. I do think that overall they do a pretty good job. So and I think when you look at these two quarterbacks, to try to say that one was better than the other, I think it comes down to they were both equal in the entirety of the game. But what do you do in the closing moments of that game? What do you do when your team is relying on you as the quarterback to close this game out? And John Mateer was able to march down there, get a touchdown when his team was behind, and put his team in the lead, and then turn that around and trust in his defense after that. And Jackson Arnold couldn't do that. Jackson Arnold couldn't get out of his own end zone. Jackson Arnold, giving some credit to him, his offensive line was affected, and again, giving some credit to him and his offensive line should not have let this be a factor, but the crowd was rowdy enough to make sure that line was going to get rattled. That line had plenty of false starts, and so I think that's one. Getting down to it now, so I've seen another narrative that needs to be shut down, that Oklahoma wasn't the better team of the two. Auburn was the better team, but Oklahoma just got saved by the refs. Now, this is a false narrative, and I will shut this down immediately by just plainly saying, first, going to third and fourth down efficiency, Oklahoma was better. Oklahoma had more total yards of offense, not by much, but they still had more. So if you're trying to say one was better than the other, what statistics are you bringing out to prove that Auburn was the better team? Oklahoma had better average per play, had more penalty yards against Oklahoma. Oklahoma ended up accumulating 10 sacks. However you want to view that, man, there was probably 12 sacks really if you want to look at some of the ones that ended up getting called back because of penalties. My point with that is just that Oklahoma was getting into the backfield whether you want to call it 9 sacks, 10 sacks, 11 sacks, I don't really care. Oklahoma got a lot of sacks and got back there and was able to disrupt Jackson Arnold and being able to pass the ball. And you can't tell me, because I know I've watched plenty of Jackson Arnold tape, you can't tell me that the first couple of times that he got hit wasn't the reason why he was holding onto the ball later on too much. That those times that he got hit wasn't the reason that he ended up overthrowing a couple of passes, that he didn't connect on a couple of passes. The reason why he wasn't making rational decisions and just lofting it up to Cam Coleman over and over again. That was the reason, because Oklahoma's pass rush was better than Auburn's offensive line. So not only that, but Oklahoma turned the ball over. There was a fumble where I guess you have to blame that on John Mateer. I'm not really sure if you were to ask those two players, and to be honest, what was actually supposed to go on there. I think it was John Mateer pulling the ball back and it fumbled out. I see others trying to say that Torrey Blaylock, I believe was the running back at the time, should have taken the ball and he didn't. Regardless, John Mateer fumbles the ball. It goes on his stat sheet, turns the ball over, giving Auburn a great opportunity there and Oklahoma stopping themselves from being able to score on that drive. But Oklahoma's defense still forced a punt out of that. Auburn gets a turnover, and they still didn't force anything out of it. They didn't even get a field goal up on the board out of it. And so that's, again, another thing that I think that has to be the deciding factor there. You look at it, Oklahoma was the better team in this matchup, just about by every metric. Now, did the officiating play with this game overall? Yes, the officiating messed this game up and the rhythm of this game so many times. But you can't sit here and tell me that this officiating wasn't just a bad officiating crew overall. And I've tried to talk with reasonable Auburn fans about this, and they're not even willing to admit this. But just the fact that there was plenty, and if you want, I can go down and make a list of plenty of calls that we can sit there and argue back and forth about, well, they missed this, they missed that. We'll go down the list here of some of the bigger calls for, I guess, against Auburn that Auburn fans are complaining about. And again, I'm not saying complaining. Is there a better word I can use for that? Because I'm not trying to make it out to be that Auburn fans had no right to complain or to make a fuss about what the refs were doing. I agree with you. But all right, let's start off by the one that, and I wish I would have been able to pull up clips and stuff, but we have to kind of fight with some of the copywriting issues and stuff like that. But let's start off with the big one that Auburn fans really want to attack, and I think the biggest one that I've seen is the fumble and scoop and score, then overturned. A lot of Auburn fans are arguing that was a fumble. Oh, why did they overturn that? That was a fumble, and they're arguing the fact that he lost control before he went down, therefore it's a fumble. But that's not what was in question. What was in question in that play was whether it was even a reception. Now that's where it comes down to objective truth. I mean, you really have to understand the rules very in depth, for one, and two, even understanding the rules is very vague. So what they like to say is that a catch, he has to first make the completion, pull it in, and have control of the ball, and then make a football move. I don't know what that means, and that is too vague. I don't like that, and that's where I can agree with Auburn fans. Now, where I don't agree with Auburn fans on that is that he did not make the catch yet. He literally had just pulled it in, made one step, maybe a step and a half, by the time that the ball was already loose. And so, yeah, he did fumble the ball if we're considering that he actually made a catch, and if we're going to come to an agreement that he made the catch, then yes, it was a fumble. That was not what was in question, though. It was whether he made the catch. And I thought the broadcast crew did a really bad job of displaying that and explaining that. And that's what I think a lot of this all comes down to. I wasn't listening to the broadcast crew too intently. I was listening to other things, and so didn't really care what the broadcast crew had to say. The question did not come down to whether it was a fumble or not. It came down to whether it was a reception or not, and it was not a reception, and that's why that got overturned. Now, if I'm stepping back and being completely unbiased about that play, if it was called a fumble on the field, and I think the reason why a lot of Auburn fans are so ticked off about that one, the big thing that I take away from that is that it was called a fumble on the field. They allowed him to go down and score. Now, I do think if we're being good refs about this, you allow that whole play to play out. You allow him to go down and score the touchdown, but then you come out and you call it an incomplete pass. The ruling on the field should have been an incomplete pass, because if you're watching that in real time, it was an incomplete pass. I shouldn't have to sit here. I don't like having to sit here and talk about the officiating, because it almost feels like Oklahoma fans feel like they have to defend their victory here, and you don't. But anyways, it was an incomplete pass. That's why that got overturned. Now, do I think it should have been overturned based on the reviews that they were showing on the screen? No, because the reviews that they were showing on the screen for the broadcast team was whether the ball came out or not before he hit the ground, and that's not what was in question. So I understand why Auburn fans are upset about that one. I do think that's extremely objective, and it could have gone either way, and I would have felt the same way. But it was called an incomplete pass. So there is really no more arguing on that one. Now, on the other one that Auburn fans really want to go to, and let's bring this up. Let's see if I can do this well enough here. So we'll bring this up. I'll try to here real quick, just because I wasn't really prepared to do so. But and maybe I should have been. You can blame me on not being prepared to do so. But we'll throw this up on here. Apologies. All right, so here we go. This is what Auburn fans want to show up and talk about, is how this is the statement that was made, and therefore Oklahoma was cheating. Because this statement was placed out there, and because the officiating said that it was misconception, or it was trying to simulate something that wasn't there, and it was unfair tactics, therefore it was. See, the SEC officiating even came out and said it. Okay, so what the officiating, what the SEC officiating, and I apologize, I know you guys probably can't see that too well. Let me see if I can blow this up on the screen a little bit better to make it a little easier to read. I don't think that it's going to make much of a difference. But anyways, I'll read it here. And the statement made from the SEC officiating is that in Saturday's Auburn at football game, with 10:50 remaining in the second quarter, a pass was thrown to an Oklahoma number 5, resulting in a touchdown. Oklahoma number 5 participated in the previous play, which was a first down from the 22-yard line. After the first down play was completed, Oklahoma number 5 continued towards his team's sideline, but stopped just before reaching the Oklahoma sideline. NCAA Football Rule 9-2, Article 2, is labeled Unfair Tactics, with paragraph B stating, no simulated replacements or substitutions may be used to confuse opponents. No tactic associated with substitutes or substitution process may be used to confuse opponents. This includes any hideout tactic with or without a substitution. The officiating crew did not properly interpret the action as a hideout tactic. If properly officiated, the second down play should have resulted in a team unsportsmanlike conduct penalty of 15 yards assessed from the previous spot. Appropriate accountability will be applied without additional comment. I don't really know how appropriate accountability will be applied without additional comment, or even making this statement after the game. I don't know how this is supposed to go down. I don't know what all that means. Here's what I take from this, is that honestly, this is dishonest officiating at this point, because you go back and actually look at what happened. And again, I apologize for not having a clip up to show you, what we can actually interpret from this. But just simply knowing that Isaiah Centena, after the play, walked over to his position, lined up to the ref, and was lining up in the wide out position. That's what was going on. There was he was walking out to the wide out position. He was not walking off the field. His back was never to the end zone, showing that he was going away. He was walking down the line of scrimmage, and lined up, pointing to the ref, and the ref gave him the clear. There was no referee that stepped over the ball. And so again, maybe you can say, well, yeah, it's just that they didn't properly interpret the action, or maybe they're improperly interpreting this action after the fact. Just because, again, you can't see him walking back and acting as if he's walking off the field. That one to me is total BS. I think it's horrible. Um, Anyways, what's another one? You want to complain about the pass interference calls that didn't get called? I'm not here for it because that gets called. That gets missed every single game you can ever watch. It needs to be addressed. I agree, but it doesn't. So what are we going to do about that after the fact? Not only that, but the big pass interference call that Auburn fans are crying about the most ended up turning into a touchdown anyways. So what are we complaining about there? Then we go down to Isaiah Satania catching the ball, but it gets called as an incomplete pass and later on overturned. I've seen a lot of Auburn fans complaining about that. Now, if we were to put that play out in the regular playing field, where let's say it was in the middle of the field, and he were to do that, Auburn fans would be calling that a fumble. They would be calling that a fumble, and if it were overturned from a fumble, then Auburn fans would have something to throw a fit about there. But instead, it was on the sideline and he was out of bounds and then fumbles the ball later on after out of bounds. So I don't really know exactly what you want to throw a fit about that one. I see Chad's here with me, man. So let me get Chad in here. 1 second. Let me get my headphones on
Yo,
for you.
what's up,
But
dude?
what's up? Now
Sorry.
I was kind of breaking down just now the last one, and I'll let you have your thoughts as well. But the last one being Isaiah Satania's incomplete pass, then called complete pass out of bounds. If that was in the middle of the field, that was easily called a fumble. And if it wasn't
Right.
called a fumble, then Auburn fans would have thrown a fit, and rightfully so. So just because it's out of bounds, now he steps out of bounds, the play is now over. How are we going to sit here and act like that shouldn't have been overturned?
Right. Funny enough, I kind of made that point with T in the state during the game. I I don't know why that was. I didn't forgot why it was such a controversial call to call it complete. Like pretty much just what you said. It was completed, and the only time he lost possession of it or lost control of it was after he had already had 2 steps inbounds and he was like 3 steps out of bounds. I mean, it was obviously a catch, and for me, it was pretty obvious that that was the correct call. I don't know where, and I'm sure you've already gotten to it, and we'll get to it again. But I just this whole thing about the trick play and stuff is it's almost to a level of ridiculousness in my opinion. It drives me up a wall. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I,
the
I
catch
just
with Isaiah is for
Yeah,
sure
I
a catch.
just brought that one up, and people want to use the SEC officiating posting out this post as if like, oh, it wasn't properly interpreted on the field. I don't think it's properly interpreted off the field after the fact.
Yeah, right.
That
I
that's
if
that's my complaint, and I had to laugh a little bit because I saw Jay Smith over with Unfair Sports, and then Locked On Sooners. He posted that they were going live, so I was like, I want to tune in and listen to what Jay's got to say out there, especially having to defend himself against other guys in the SEC. And he was going off, man. I don't know if you
mhm,
caught him on
mm-mm.
Locked On
I
today, but
love Jay though. Jay's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was going off, and he explained it well. It's just the officiating got it wrong after the fact even. He
That's
was
what
walking out towards the sideline. He was walking down the line of scrimmage. He was never walking towards the sideline as if to walk off the field. And
right.
you can argue that all you want on the Auburn side or trying to defend the SEC officials, but you can't argue intent. And that's why I think that penalty that people are throwing a fit about is so dumb. Not only that, but does that even keep Oklahoma out of the end zone if they get a 15-yard penalty? I don't know.
Right. I just so my whole thing with that was exactly it. If I'm OU and I'm almost to this point, I'm getting Venables, I'm getting Arbuckle, I'm getting Castiglione and Haraz, and I'm calling the SEC, and they're going to be telling me on a conference call that I'm recording how this was an illegal play. And then if it's not, you're going to be issuing a redaction of that interpretation that you were wrong by its own language. It's incorrect. There's no gray area here. There was nothing wrong with the play. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Everyone that's had a reason as to why it is incorrect is just wrong. The ref, it is a subjective interpretation of whether or not you think he's trying to sub out. The ref said no. He lined up in a receiver stance. He pointed to the ref to make sure he was on the ball. He did everything a receiver does. The issue is that Auburn apparently isn't coached well enough to know that you need to make sure you're covering everybody. Wide splits aren't illegal. That whole rule is made so that coaches you can't have a player, and actually they have I believe in the rule book, they have hypotheticals that are issued out that go through the type of situations in which you would have a player deemed or a play that is trick play that is not legal, and that is like if you break the huddle with like 10 guys, or you have a guy that comes off the field, break the huddle with 10, and then some player right before the snap runs on the field at the very edge of the field and just sneaks on and then runs a route. That's not legal. You can't do that. But they never subbed a single player off. The 11 that were on the field were the 11 that ran that play. And the people that are saying you can't be deceptive, you can't use deceptive tactics. It's like they don't think about their words before they say them, which I get, fans aren't known to do all the time. And maybe just by virtue of my profession, it's just I can't help but do that. But you literally deception is almost an inherent character of every play ever called in football. You're not sitting there just saying, "Hey, we're running here." A play action is deceptive.
It's the
Everything you
point.
do is deceptive. It's the whole
It's the
point of
point.
being a good yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
it's the
so
point of it, and that's kind of what I was getting to a little bit with that is that
Mhm.
okay, if what was done on the field, if you can point and tell me that 100% you can see intent of deception, I will concede my point. You can't see it, and I know you can't see it because it's not there.
Mhm.
And so but if there was some sort of deception, back in the day, and like the Johnny Manziel walking off the field and talking to his coordinator, and all of a sudden he runs down the field,
Yeah.
and catches the pass, that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's the type of stuff that they're trying to eliminate. But why? If I can deceive you, why? If that's what Oklahoma was doing, I think that should still be allowed. It's not what they were doing, and it's a poor argument. And not only that, but I was going through this earlier, just to kind of to break down. So there's a narrative going out that Arnold played a better game than Mateer. That's not true. If anything, they were
Nope.
comparable. But if you really want to break it down, what's a better player for you in terms of a quarterback? A quarterback that goes out there and maybe starts off slow, but then ends up winning the game because he completes 16 to 17 of his pass completions, or a quarterback that ends up getting sacked 10, 11 times and can't complete a pass because he's overthrowing his best wide receiver, and can't complete those clutch plays. I'll go with the clutch guy over the guy that is staying in the pocket too long and creating sacks, holding onto the ball too long. Not only that, but I also walked down through this too. I'll kind of repeat it for you and then for anyone else who
Mhm.
wasn't here whenever I was throwing it down. Oklahoma was a better team in third and fourth down efficiency. They had more total yards on offense. They had a better average per play, yards per play. They had more penalty yards against them and still overcame them. They had the 10 plus sacks, however you want to consider that, 14 tackles for loss. They turned the ball over and gave Auburn an opportunity to do something with it and still forced them to punt the ball. Tell me how Oklahoma wasn't the better team in that matchup.
They were. They were in every way. I mean, this is and not only that, it's there. You see all the what ifs that they always bring up, and it's like my favorite thing is if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like none of that matter. The end of the day is that Auburn wasn't good enough to beat OU. They just weren't. Oklahoma, don't forget, only beats themselves on offense right now because they can't run the ball. They get behind the chains whenever they don't have a big John Mateer run on first down. And when it comes to what ifs, if we don't drop two easy interceptions, what if then? And you can what if this thing to death. Oklahoma outplayed them. They have a player in John Mateer who people can say whatever they want. Like, and just to your point exactly, you were up one. You knew there was one player that you couldn't let beat you, and you couldn't stop him from doing it. You couldn't do it. You weren't good enough. You had all five starters returning on your offensive line. You had the number 7 overall offensive line according to Pro Football Focus, and you got bullied and sunned. And you better be glad Armason Thomas went in the whole game, or you might have some guys that were literally not able to finish the game because they were so ashamed of how their performance had gone so far. It was a complete mismatch up front. We had been saying, I know Josh and I've been saying for sure for a while, there is not a better defense in the country than Oklahoma's. I'm tired of people getting cringe faces whenever I say that. There just isn't. It
Well,
is the
and
best defense in the country, and it's for me. It's not even particularly close because we played the most competition of any other defense I think you could compare us to. Penn State, Ohio State, they played nobody. They played Texas, but I repeat myself, that's
so
nobody on offense. It's so to me, it's pretty clear that OU was just a better team.
yeah, so I was looking at it. So Miami, USF, Oklahoma. I think those are the only three teams. I might be missing one on there. Those are the
Mhm.
only three teams that have played an AP top 25 or multiple AP top 25 teams, and won.
Did you see
And
that stat SEC numbers came out with?
I
Uh,
don't think so.
so Oklahoma has two wins against ranked teams. The Big Ten as a whole conference is 2-8 against ranked teams. So we have
I
as many
will.
ranked wins as the entire Big Ten conference.
I will give it to Kurt Signetti. Everyone wanted to say that it was a fluke year last year for him. Indiana, watch out, man! Like they whooped up on Illinois. I know Illinois probably shouldn't be ranked number 9, but they still beat a top
Oh,
10 team and just dominated them.
dude,
Um,
that was
Goodness. And that's an Illinois team that prides themselves on their defense. But yeah, to your point though, with a defense in Oklahoma, this is why whenever I was making my predictions, and what was so hard for me is that I could see this being a freaky game. And I was talking with Blake about this. I feel like this is going to be a weird game where weird things are happening. Sure enough, you have all these kind of objective calls. I will say objective calls because you have to look at that fumble that was reversed, and I will concede to the fact that depending on how you interpret the rule, whether the receiver made a football move or not, that's such a vague terminology.
mhm,
And so I don't think he made a football move. He took a step and a half by the time he finally tucked that ball in, and then the ball was out. And so
yeah,
that to me was not a fumble. That was an incomplete pass. I think it was called right. Whether it should have been overturned or not, I probably would have. If I was the referee in that situation, I'm probably letting the call stand as called on the field, whatever that was. Whether it was called a fumble or called an incomplete pass, that's how I would have called it. So there was a lot of weird things. I also mentioned that I think that, man, this is such a defensive game, and it's also such an emotional game for many players, not just Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold was the one that was picked on, but it is such an emotional game for so many players out there on that field that I think there's going to be a lot of things to back you up into your own territory. And I told Blake, I feel like I'm feeling like there's going to be a safety in this game. Like, and that's, you know what? Hey, I'll count that
mhm,
as Oklahoma's first turnover. I don't care what you want to say. The safety is
yeah,
our first turnover. But yeah, I mean, there's so much, and then also what I was mentioning about this defense is I don't know a single offense in the entire nation that could score 20 points on this defense, even with all the mistakes, even with all the screw ups, even with the poor
yep.
officiating. And I think that I just don't see it. Um, I guess I'll look through the chat. I mean, did you have anything else to throw in there?
No, I'm just kind of reading through the comments about. I just don't get where it's. I had someone message me and say, "Well, he was taking off his gloves." Again, read all these things and it's not illegal to take off your gloves. You can do that for a million reasons. And that idiot, I shouldn't be so up. That rules expert, whoever he is, Matt, whatever his name is, that was
Yeah,
on TV, should never be on TV again. You
I
can't be
mean,
that wrong about something and continue to be on national television spewing out wrong information.
if
To
you
say
wanted,
someone's to say
it,
someone's body language suggested is ridiculous to me.
yeah.
Body
Well, and
language is not is they're body language expert. It's not valuable. It's not a legitimate science. There's no actual way to actually decipher when body language says one thing versus the other. It's why I get mad at all these people that when it comes to like Fourth Amendment rights, like you should always have an attorney. You should. But then people say, guilty people will never do it. A guilty person would never say they didn't do it because that's what guilty people would, that's what a non-guilty person would do. And then non-guilty people say it and they're like, well, only a guilty person would say they didn't do it. Like all this body language, all this suggestive stuff, if you're in that world, it doesn't need to be applicable to football because it's impossible to have a consistent standard at that point.
yeah, yeah, and I think overall, I don't even know what body language you could see from that would suggest that he was going off the field. For
Oh,
one, he
it's
was
yeah.
walking. Two,
Mhm.
he was down the sideline, never with his back towards the end zone. And as soon as he got to the sideline, he looked to the ref, checked with him, and he was lined up and ready to go seconds before the ball was snapped. So, I mean, I don't understand how the officiating crew can still be wrong about it, or even not even be wrong. Okay, I will give them the fact that they're entitled to their own opinion on this because there really isn't anything
Yeah.
definitive on either side.
Very
And
true.
so, but the fact that they can be so definitive to put a statement out to say that it
Yes.
was wrong, and then not only that, but on their statement too. What does this mean? Appropriate accountability will be applied without additional comment. What appropriate accountability for one, and two, you're not even going to mention what accountability you're putting out there. That's a load of BS just to make fans, SEC fans. I'm not going to call out Auburn fans, but just to make SEC fans feel better about their officiating. It's the officiating was horrible, but to sit here and act like it wasn't horrible on both sides is kind of crazy.
Yep.
Um,
They
I-
miss calls all the time. I'm sure you mentioned the one about where they literally missed the holding on Marvin Jones Jr. late in the game. He almost decapitated him. Then
yeah,
didn't
there
even
was
try to call it.
Yeah, there was several holding calls that were just like extremely blatant holding, not even just like okay,
Mhm.
so this is my feeling on holding. Every time that I complain about holding or if I see somebody else complain about holding, well, holding is on every play. Then call it
Mhm.
on every damn play and stop letting it get through because then you're
Mhm.
allowing the players to hold. I don't care about that. That's a stupid excuse. If there's holding on a play, it should be called. And there was some extremely blatant holding all over the place because Auburn's offensive line could not stop Oklahoma's defensive line. There was extremely blatant holding, nonstop throughout that game. There was some on Oklahoma too that I think should have been called. That I was like, man, that probably should have been called. And the pass interference on Cam Coleman, I brought this up earlier. That should have been called. I agree. The pass interference on Cortland Guillory, it should not have been pass interference. It should have been holding, if anything. And it was kind of a minor hold at that.
Right.
He did stretch his jersey, but did it really affect him to the point where he was going to be able to even reach that ball? I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, that's subjective. Um, but anyways, I'll go down through some of these chats real quick.
Just
Just kind
well,
of
yeah, sure.
yeah. Go ahead. Did you have something?
No, I was gonna say I agree with you 100% on the. It's like the what do you call it? What they ended up calling, which they obviously missed that was a terrible miscall uh on the no pass interference on Cam Coleman. If you watch
Yeah.
that replay, someone got it of the ref was just trying to sprint to get in front of the play, and right when he turned his head is when it was when Gentry Williams like tackled him, and he just literally timed up perfectly. It was bad luck. OU fans would have been out of. They would have been just as mad as Auburn fans. That anger is legitimate. I'd be
Yeah.
upset too. Here's the thing: you scored on that drive,
Yeah. Well,
so
and
it
you
was all
scored
moot.
you scored on one too that they even showed a close up of where your tight end, I believe it was out there holding to no end.
Yes. Yeah,
Just
so all
throwing that
that's
out
moot.
there. Just throwing that out there. But I see Jonathan in the chat. He says, I think with the way he was slowly walking towards the sidelines, plus Stoops' comment they practiced all week indicates they were trying to catch Auburn sleeping, whether it violates the rule or not. Yeah, I mean, you can catch another team sleeping. That's not part of the rule. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I get where you're coming from, Jonathan. But I mean, again, the rule is just so vague. Stop making rules like targeting so vague and open to interpretation. Stop making rules like this, where whether a player makes a football move when he makes a catch is why Auburn fans are so ticked off, and rightfully so, about the fumble recovery turned into a touchdown. I'm not saying that Auburn fans don't have a right to be upset with the officiating crew, because they do 100%. It was horrible. It was so horrible they should never see the field again. That
Yeah.
officiating crew should just be kicked out.
Yep.
You're not allowed in this sport. But yeah,
I
I mean
agree.
it doesn't violate the rule at all, in my opinion, because he never was, showing as if he was going to be coming off the field. If you're coming off the field, you jog off the field for number one. Number two, you have a referee that stands over the ball right away. Why was that not there? Again, maybe that's because they misinterpreted it on the field. Whatever. I'm kind of over that. Mr. Dilligaff says, seriously, how about the non-offensive pass interference on Satania? Good one to bring up. What about all the holding penalties on Auburn's offensive line? There were missed calls on both sides. Let's not act like it was only one-sided. Exactly. And that's all I'm trying to say. And it ticks me off to get on here and talk about officiating so much in a win, because it feels like Oklahoma fans feel like they have to defend themselves in this win. You don't.
Yeah, nope.
Oklahoma, like I mentioned a moment ago, I listed off a ton of things that Oklahoma was the better team. Oklahoma scored more points at the end of the game. Oklahoma was more dominant on defense. What more can you ask from your team?
Mhm. They were better on both sides of the ball. They I don't and here's the thing, like, Jackson didn't play a bad game. It's not like there's
Yeah.
like we played like he just played a bad game and that's why we won. He had some good moments. The problem is that when you consistently get pressure on somebody, and I know that he missed the throw to Cam Coleman late in the game that would have put him up, but still, when you're consistently getting pressure, that's what happens with quarterbacks. They start getting fast feet, they start anticipating, and there was pressure on that throw. But like you're saying, there's no reason to feel like awkward about the win if you're OU. We were a better team. They could have stopped us whenever we had the ball with 8 minutes left and they were up by 1. They didn't do it. They didn't get the job done. We stopped them whenever they had their game-winning drive or their attempt to. Not only did we stop them, we actually got points for ourselves. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we were just a better team, and I think we are a better team, and I think the result of the game proved that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Going over to T, who could have jumped on here with us today, but she said
Yeah,
ended
she's
up
not
turning
feeling too well.
into a turnover following an egregious no call holding and a DPI when both players are holding each other's jerseys. The false start that actually helped them. We had them stopped on 4th. Yeah, I mean there was so much, so much. Okay, and that was into a TD is what she meant. Yeah, yeah. I mean there was so much in all of that, and yeah that that call should have been holding, if anything. But I agree. I was watching that over and over again last night and trying to decipher. And I'm like, okay, there's batting back and forth, and so that pass interference should have just been, canceled out. But then they call roughing the passer.
Yeah,
What the heck was that? You tell me how that was roughing the passer. Get
can't.
out of here with that BS. I mean, like that's the kind of stuff that irritates me about roughing the passer in the NFL. That's the reason why I don't watch the NFL nearly as much as I watch college football, because
Mhm.
they're too weak on some of those calls. And I know you and T and I were talking about the chop blocks that weren't called 2 plays in a row. The one wasn't quite. I mean, he got shoved up high. And then he ended up getting chopped. And I'm trying to remember the player that it was. But then he ends up, I think it was Taylor Wine. And he ends up getting up anyways and still making the tackle in the backfield, which was awesome. So
Yeah.
he gets chop blocked. Maybe that
Well, I
one was
think it
too
was.
weak to call.
I think that was that was Heineke.
Yeah, I think you're right. It probably was
Yeah,
Heineke.
yeah,
And,
it was 38. Yeah.
that first one was probably too weak to call because he did get shoved. And as he was standing up, then he got chopped. And it wasn't at the
Mhm.
same time. I'll concede that. But the second one was blatant. I know you guys pointed that one out as well. Anyways, let's see here. We'll go to ES. Is it Cheater Sunday? Brent Cheatables and John Cheatier
John
rigged their way to
Tier.
victory. Point to me one area that okay. I'm okay with you blaming the officials for losing the game. I get it. And I just mentioned this a moment ago. When Oklahoma fans blame officiating for losing games, I get after Oklahoma fans the same way. You have to beat the
Mhm.
officials too. All right, they're against both teams every single game. So you've got to. So what in what way was Oklahoma cheating? Show me one way where Oklahoma made the cheating. The action of cheating. It's not there.
Mhm.
Come at me with something else. Losers complain about officials. Winners go out and make plays when needed. Plain and simple. Exactly.
Yep.
Um, yeah, Oklahoma was the better team, and the officiating changed the game. I do think that this game would have been different. Um, Honestly, if you took that poor officiating out and made better officiating, I think Oklahoma wins by more.
Yeah, I
I'll make
because
that argument.
did you see that picture that was going around about Satanga? Now I'm sure Satanga's butt was on the ground during that little scoop and score that they talk about. It's like so really it could have cost OU offensive yards. I mean, it's not even in that whenever they said he didn't complete the pass, it's like he was on the ground before he even fumbled it, so it should have been down. Assuming that's
Well,
in the
no,
same completed pass, but
now, what you're talking about, so that my dad thought that was the case too. That's not his hand holding onto the ball. That's the white glove. That was the
is
Auburn's
it?
hand. Yeah, so that one's going around again. That's why I hate freeze framing and trying to
Yeah, I
make
was about to
things
say I
out
don't
to
know.
be. Yeah, that one because I in real time that's what I thought. I was like, oh, he didn't even lose it, and I was like, my dad was pointing that out. I was like, oh, never mind. That's not even his glove, dude. That's the defender's glove. So he did lose the ball. So if you're saying that was a completed catch, then yes, it was a
Mm,
fumble and it should have been a touchdown. So, but again, to many of our points, there's so many what ifs
mhm.
in that game that we can sit here and play around. My vote, if we're really going to make this right, let's get whatever the best officiating crew is. Well, let's all agree on it, and we'll find the best officiating crew, and let's play this game again next week. Oklahoma's a bye week. What's Auburn got going on next week? Cancel your game. Let's replay this game. I am that definitive
Yeah.
about this game. Oklahoma was the better team. John Mateer
Yeah.
got off to a slow start, turned it around, and was better. It's just
Mhm.
I'm not going to apologize for the win. And I'm going to agree with Auburn fans. I'm not trying to sit here and act like they're wrong for being upset about the officiating. It's just they're wrong about the wrong things, I guess. Um, that's they're pointing out the wrong things. T says they had a lead with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, couldn't get a stop, then got wrecked when they went back on offense. Exactly, and man, there was I can't remember exactly what the play was. I remember it in my head being like, "Oh, that's a safety, right? That's a safety," and then it didn't get called the way that I thought it was, and I don't remember what it was. But then Oklahoma ended up getting the actual safety, and man, I have that
Yeah.
clip. That's going to be a clip that I end up breaking down on Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. But the R. Mason safety, the R. Mason Thomas safety, man, that was something special. But I see Jonathan says the way that he was walking to his spot looked like he was getting set for a play, but going to the sideline, which would seem like deception. I think it should be allowed, but I don't make the rules. Yeah, and I agree with you, man. Like if
Mhm.
he's walking off to the sideline again, I think that the easy determination there is whether his back was to the end zone or not, and it never was. I never
Right.
saw it. So
His back was never when the snap happened, he was just lined up like a normal receiver in a normal receiver stance. He wasn't trying to act like he was talking to the coach or anything like that. He was just lined up. He pointed to the ref to make sure he was lined up on sides. Like, it
yeah,
literally was fine. It's not the ref's job to say, "Hey, corner, you have a wide split out here. Don't be an idiot." You know what they were doing? They were talking crap to Deion Burks, not focused.
yeah,
That's the whole thing. They forgot he was out there because Deion Burks was in their head, which, you saw it too because right whenever he snapped, Deion just does the touchdown sign.
yeah,
Sorry, be better prepared. Hugh Freeze, be a better coach. That's all I can
yeah.
tell you.
Maybe that's the deception was that Deion Burks was interacting. I'll concede that. Maybe that was
Mhm.
the deception that if that's what they wanted to come out and say, Deion Burks was distracting them, therefore that's a deception. I will concede that 100%. We can do that. Um,
Oh, so actually, T sent a picture of the pic. It is his glove. It's
well,
his
I
red
mean,
glove. His
go
OU
go
glove is on
yeah,
there.
go back and watch the replay though. I really don't think he had control of it.
Had he already lost control of the
He
ball at that
definitely
point?
lost control when he's
Okay,
going
that's
down.
fair.
But
That's
that's
fair. I
my
don't know.
point is that he lost control immediately when he took a step and a half. That's not
Yeah.
a football move. Uh,
Right. Right.
what we want to determine as a football move, I don't know. I guess that's again that I
That's
hate that
another
that's
one of those.
vague.
Yeah.
Um,
A football move. Like what?
what's funny though, Chad. So
Yeah.
I never go on. I don't think I ever go on and just listen to another team, especially another rivals podcasts or anything like
Mhm.
that, and
Appreciate those that
comment
do.
on their shows unless we're about to play them and I want to hear what they've got to say about their team as we're about to go and match up with them. But I do find it funny that Bevo's bodyguard says Blow U needs
What?
a needs a blush league trick play.
Blow you.
Oh, Bush League. I kind of threw an L there. Sorry, bad education there, but they need the little Bush League trick play and biased refs to barely beat Auburn at home. Yeah. Again, Oklahoma was the better team, so let's play it again next week. Let's do it. I just
Also, dude, y'all barely beat. Y'all looked like you were struggling with. I don't know. What is it? Who'd they play? I mean, I don't even remember the team they
hey,
played last
I
week.
will give it to they beat Sam Houston and they covered the spread. Congrats,
First cover of the year, right?
Texas.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats.
they finally proved me wrong. They finally proved me wrong. And so I'll give them that.
Arch Manning is
I'm not gonna give any time to Texas though right now. Like
just such a. Oh, I hate front runners, man. That's what. Oh, to flex and talk crap on Sam Houston State. It's just sad to see them fall as far as they have. I hope they improve a lot because we want it to be a competitive game in Dallas. And what's sad for them is they don't have the reasons of not succeeding like we've had, wherever we were just injured with Dylan Gabriel or had 10 starters out last year. So
this past
hopefully they
week,
improve a lot and they get a lot better to make it more competitive in October.
at least on Tuesday, Oklahoma had a bigger availability chart, a longer availability chart
Hmm.
than Texas did.
Hmm.
So I don't know
Yeah.
what to tell you. Sorry, but I know UT and we all voted on our player of the week. And I was really excited. We've been talking about the guy. I'll pull this one up real quick. We've got the Oklahoma VOCFB Player of the Week, R. Mason Thomas. Big time game. Man, I was looking at everybody's stats, and there was so many guys that we were talking about. I know we ended up coming down to three, where I was like, all right, these are my three. You guys throw in another one if you want. And you guys both were like, nah, R. Mason. R. Mason is the guy because he comes away with 4 tackles, 2 sacks. He got a safety, and that's impressive.
Mhm.
But he did it all with just 2 quarters of play because of a terrible a terrible targeting call the week before. So he didn't even get to play in the first half and still had a full game's worth of stats in one half. And I absolutely love it. Man, I think that you look at our Mason Thomas, I knew that his presence was not going to be missed so much where it was like, man, we would have been able to play so much better in the first half if our Mason Thomas was out there. But I also knew that him coming in the second half, he has something to go out there and just be angry about, and he's also got a whole extra half of energy.
Mhm.
And so I saw somebody make this comment. Maybe they should just start to do that a little more often. Just keep him out in the first half because he made a huge
Yeah.
impact. Again on Tuesday, I'm excited to kind of break that last play down, that safety, kind of break that one down for him. But
Dude,
he had an amazing game.
the play he had where he caught the running back on that breakaway, he almost
Yeah,
saved a touchdown. Would have been a touchdown. Maybe they catch him, but it's he saved probably 30 yards of offense, and he comes from the right end. Now that might be a result of having fresh legs, but um, you know, Bevo's bodyguard, you're an actual idiot. We had 52 guys in that game, and 26 of them were on scholarship. So I mean, I don't know why I'm messing with Texas fans. I guess I just can't help
I
when you see objectively stupid things and just
yeah.
you see people repeat them, and it's just I don't mean to come on, but just goodness,
No, you're fine. I mean,
like
I
dude,
find
it's
it
a
funny.
bowl game, my guy.
I
It's a
I
bowl
appreciate
game.
you tuning in and giving us your time, anyways, Bevo.
True.
I appreciate it. I mean, the views help us, and so it's I'm not gonna shy away from it, and I'm okay with the banter too. Honestly, it's stupid most of the time. I
Yeah,
don't
same.
partake in
Yeah,
it, but now
I
the
do. I'm
rivalry
much more
banter.
childish than Josh. Sorry, Josh. So
See, I
in
never
that
went
regard.
I never went to college anywhere, and so I went to trade school, and then now I'm doing what I'm doing, and so kind of proves that college is a scam, right?
Hey,
Um,
Josh, can I ask you a question about just kind of these last two games with Michigan, and I guess I'm looking over Temple, but Michigan and Auburn.
yeah,
We were talking about this at lunch. It is it, like these kind of the kind of wins they've had where it's 10-minute drive to end the game against Michigan when you know you have to run the ball. It's the 4-minute drive yesterday whenever you know you need it to win the game. Like these kind of wins seem like the kind of wins we just haven't gotten in the past. And like, what does that mean in terms of like this legit being a team that could win an SEC championship and make a deep playoff run? And like, in your opinion, to me, it just shows that you have a quarterback that really truly has whatever the it factor is, and I guess it's called that because it is hard to define. But that has the utmost belief in what his capabilities are, and you have a team that just I don't know why, but like whenever John got the ball, I just didn't have much of a doubt we were going to go score or at least get in the field goal range. What does that mean in your like to you, or does it mean much to you that we've done that, or how are you kind of interpreting all that?
yeah. I think the same thing goes when Oklahoma turns the ball over last year. Oklahoma was freaking out. Oklahoma fans had every right to freak out because you gave up an opportunity. This year, you gave up an opportunity, and we're frustrated about that. But people want to try to pull out John Mateer's 3 interceptions. Like it was, especially Auburn fans. He threw 3 interceptions. He did, but first of all, one of the interceptions, if you're actually paying attention, was targeting that didn't get called. And do you really blame that on the quarterback? It goes on his stats. It's there. He threw that one. The first one of the season was Deion Burks not sitting down in the empty part of the zone. Miscommunication goes on the quarterback. I get it. And so
Hmm.
I'm not really frustrated as much with the quarterback on those two. He could have probably made a better decision. He probably could have thrown it somewhere else or found something else. But I don't worry. Like you said, I don't worry about Oklahoma on offense when they turn the ball over this year the way that I did last year. And right now they're getting killed in the turnover margin, and they're still finding ways to win. And so I think what that does for Oklahoma is it gives your defense so much more confidence than they had last year. So last year, I felt like you could find moments where the defense was losing was losing confidence and just kind of got broken down by another team's
Mhm.
offense where they wouldn't have if they felt like, all right, hey, they turned it over, but we can go down and we can shut this down and give it back to the offense and let them do something. They didn't have that
Mhm.
confidence in their offense last year. So I understand that the offense is struggling in the run game. I understand that there's some things maybe on the offensive line that we could maybe fix a little bit. I don't think it's as bad as many Oklahoma fans are making it out to be on the offensive line. Again, the pass
Mhm.
blocking looks great, and so I love that. But
There's also this fact that I mean, they did have 3 guys with, like, high ankle sprains having to play yesterday. Fasusi tried, he just couldn't do it.
yeah,
Losing Sexton is showing that it is hurting depth because he would have been a good Howland, was all right yesterday. I think getting Sexton back would be helping a lot, but he's out right now, and
Michaela
I don't
was a
know if he's gonna
little
be back,
banged
but
up too.
Mikula's banged up, and so it's set up perfectly. That's why the win yesterday was so big to me, and obviously it's a big win regardless, but even the timing of it just kind of made it even that much bigger because you have this bye week, and then you have, I mean, a scrimmage bye week, and I'm sure a lot of these linemen, I don't know. I mean, maybe give them a series or two just to keep them loose or what. But then I'm wanting them resting. I don't want them rolling up and mess because you need to be healthy for the Texas game. Because
Yeah,
as bad as their offense is, and I don't know if they score more than 14 against Florida this coming up week, their defense is legit. Like their defense is very good. So you need those guys healthy, and to give the offense more of a shot at kind of creating some chaos and whatnot. But I'm excited to see kind of how they kind of heal back over this bye week and where they look. And let's mention this too for OU fans, who they're getting back. What's crazy is you're about to get 2 guys back, one on offense, one on defense. It's gonna help you a ton. Giovanni
if you
Gibson coming back
if you
is
had
huge to me.
Eli Bowen up against Cam Coleman, do you not think that there was probably maybe a couple of those penalties that wouldn't have gotten called,
Mhm.
or maybe even batted plays, batting the ball down. That's the thing that I was kind of frustrated with. Why did you not put Gentry Williams on Cam Coleman sooner? Why
Mhm.
did you not ever pull a safety over top of him? And I can't question Brent Venables. He's way smarter of a
Yeah,
defensive mind than I
it
am.
is questions though. You're right. It's true.
Yeah, and
It's like I
so
asked my dad. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. I
no,
didn't
no,
mean to interrupt.
I just think so. Why didn't you do something to stop him a little sooner? Because I don't think Auburn used him as often as they should have.
Well, and I was asking. I was on the recap show. I don't know if he caught it, but I had my dad on. For those listening, my dad, like I always say, was a DC for 30 years. Coached at OU back in the day. Coached at every level but the NFL. That's my quick spiel on him, just so his bona fides. So when he talks about this stuff, he's legit an expert in it. But I was like, Dad, look, I'm not an offensive coordinator, and I was like, I won't pretend to know 1/100th of what Ben Arbuckle does, or these Hugh Freeze knows about offense, because Hugh Freeze is a good play caller. He's not an idiot. I'm like, if I have a guy that they just can't stop, I'm just going to keep throwing it to him until you start double and triple teaming him. And although he had other options, and again, Jackson missed him on a throw, I still, to your point, they just didn't. If I have a guy like that, you're going to make me stop throwing it to him. I'm just throwing him jump balls over and over and over because eventually they're going to get calls or you're going to get a big completion. And it seems like maybe Oklahoma, and I'm not saying Giovanni Gibson will be at that level. I do think Cam Coleman's, I mean, Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman are 1A, 1B. If I were to pull a name out of a hat, I'm happy with either one. Maybe Jeremiah Smith because the size, and he's probably a little better run blocker, I guess, from what I've seen from people that do grading on wide receivers. But I just don't get why, and hopefully Giovanni, when he comes back, can be that guy of size with speed on the outside that can be that jump ball for us. Because right now we really don't have that. I think Keontez Lewis has done well on the back shoulder timing routes, but we need a guy that we can just say, hey, be a better athlete than this dude, and when it just throw it up to him. But then you get, like you're saying, Eli Bowen back, and Cortland Guillory's been fantastic as a true freshman. I think people are
Yeah, great.
in there are just forgetting how good Eli Bowen was last year,
Yeah,
um, as a true freshman. And like you don't come in at the Texas game and then from Texas on earn all like first team freshman honors, SEC first team or SEC freshman honors if you're not unbelievable. And he went against he locked down Ryan Williams. Granted, Milrow wasn't throwing much that game, but locked him down. He did well against everyone he went up against, and you're getting that guy back on top of what you already have out there. And so you talk about depth and being fresh every time, fresh throughout the game. It is Oklahoma is set up in a position where if they get and tell me if you agree with this, Josh. And I know I'm kind of spitballing. I have some thoughts that are just kind of raining out
yeah.
right now.
Keep on going with it, man.
Tell me if you agree with this because I was asked on a different show, like, do I think Oklahoma can win a national championship? And I was like, sure. I was like, granted that winning a national championship or SEC title, you need to have a little bit of luck in there. You got to be healthy. You got to have a good matchup in the playoff to make a deep run. I think at least to have unless if you're just objectively better than everybody. And I don't see like Ohio State of last year right now. I just don't. I was like, but here's what I can tell you: if Oklahoma's offense gels, uh, and they can start producing consistently, all I can tell you is that there's not a team that I objectively think is better than Oklahoma, because I think we have the best defense out there. That's whether if you're in the top 5, you're good enough to beat any team in the country. I mean, once you get to that level, it's really just it's you're all basically as good as each other.
Right now, I
I don't
think
think a
even
defensive
the
line.
top 10, top 15 right now,
Right,
this early in the
fair.
season.
Fair, yeah, 100, fair, very fair. But in terms of like the defensive line, I'll say I wouldn't switch OU's defense for anybody else's. For the first time, I think I've ever said that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were like Chad, you can switch the talent for Georgia's defense. I would take Oklahoma right now because I
Yeah.
think they understand the system. I think they have belief in what they're doing, and they're just all uber talented. And if you can get the offense to work out, I can't. I'm not saying you will. Again, you need luck. You need some things to cut your way. I don't know a team that on paper I'd objectively say is just better than Oklahoma
Yeah, and I was
if
talking
the
about
offense starts
this
flowing.
I was talking about this earlier on with Oklahoma, and to your point, can Oklahoma win a national championship with this team? I'm not going to go as far to say that I think they will. I think it's
Right,
such a
fair.
brutal schedule, and I'll recognize to Bevo that Texas is going to be a good team, and they're going to be a tough team to beat. And
Yeah, they will for
I'm
sure.
curious about that matchup, and it's building up, and especially if Texas can win and win decisively too against Florida. That's looking like a really good matchup. So that's a tough game. South Carolina is a little bit more beatable now than I thought, but
Mhm.
Tennessee is less beatable than I thought. I think they're tougher than what I thought originally in the beginning of the season. And then of course Alabama, kind of the same way when they started off and lost to who was it, Florida State in the beginning of the season. I thought, man, that's an easy win for Oklahoma. Not anymore. I mean, they're looking like they're back on track to where they should be. So
Um,
there's that.
you know
LSU,
who
I think, is
else?
still going to be tough.
LSU. You know who else? And that's just kind of scaring me. Tell me that Ole Miss with Trinidad Chambliss.
Yeah,
That dude is. I've said this. I'll never see a quarterback as athletic or quick as Kyler. He's the closest I've ever seen. If you watch him run, he's the first one with the ability to stop and go. That is at least in the same. You could put that in like a similar cat. He's still not as quick, I don't think. But dude, he'll start running, and I'm like, that looks like Kyler. Now he's not Kyler Murray, obviously, and he didn't start the year for a reason. But he is. He won a D2 Natty last year for whatever that means to anybody. I mean, it just shows there is talent
yeah.
at that level. But the dude is just uber talented. And for you look historically at quarterbacks that gave Venables defenses fits, it's running quarterbacks. And he's thrown the ball really well. He's over 300 yards in his last 2 games, each game
The last
throwing and
last two that Oklahoma had to go against, I guess I'll name off the last three really because I think Bryce Underwood has proven that he is a dual threat quarterback. Just couldn't do it
yeah.
against Oklahoma. So you had Jackson Arnold held down to a negative yardage. Uh,
Hmm.
Bryce Underwood held down to basically nothing. I don't have that stat pulled up in front of me right now. But then Jalen Milroe,
Hmm.
nothing. I don't think that's an issue for me. And Ole Miss is not a worry to me just because I think Oklahoma in your own house, and then on top
Hmm.
of that, you also have a better defense that's going to be able to slow them down. But their defense is not anything for me to really worry about. I
That's
think
true.
Oklahoma will be fine. But to the national perspective again, I think when I look at Oklahoma, and I said this, I think to Blake earlier on in the week, I think on Thursday, whenever we were previewing this Auburn game, is that with Oklahoma, I don't see a team in the nation that I feel confident that could score 20 points on this defense. Not a single
Hmm.
team. And to the other side of that, I don't think there's a single defense that can hold Oklahoma to less than 20 points. I don't see it. Auburn couldn't do it. Michigan couldn't do it. We'll see if maybe a really tough Texas defense is able to do it. I don't think that's the case. We'll see if maybe a tough. Obviously, I don't think Tennessee is going to hold them down to less than 20. South Carolina's defense might be able to be in the running for the teams that have a chance. I don't think that there's a team that can score more than 20 points on Oklahoma's defense. And then I don't think that there's a defense that can hold Oklahoma to less than 20. So yeah, I think Oklahoma's in the running. And you know what? I do want to take a quick moment too for Sooner Cowboys. He says if OU O-line don't get healthy and improve, probably will lose 3 to 4 games. But if Oklahoma beats Texas, 10-2 is possible. That is the most optimism that I have heard from Sooner Cowboys probably ever. And so I appreciate that. Yeah, I think 10-2 is reasonable for Oklahoma
Yeah.
fans to be okay with. Not not ecstatic, not like jumping up and down, like, oh my gosh, we won. No, I mean, we want 11-0, or I guess 12-0, 11-1, and 12-0. That's expectations, but you got to be okay with 10-2 because of the brutal schedule. Yeah, 10-2 might even get you into the SEC championship. 10-2 secures you into the playoffs. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's a lot with this team that you could look at and just be really excited about, because the only weakness that Oklahoma has is their running game, traditional running game, and they're still
Yep.
able to win against top opponents, top defenses like Auburn and Michigan without that. So, I think that's something worth mentioning for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, I will say I'm going to pull this one up because I saw this one. Bevo said Texas held Ohio State to 14 points. Have you seen Ohio State play this year? I think Ohio State is extremely overrated this year.
Yeah.
Julian saying not it. Um, they have Jeremiah Smith, and then they have a couple other guys out at wide receiver, and they're still not able to really score very well. They struggled to finally get a touchdown in the first half against Ohio Bobcats, not Ohio State, the Ohio Bobcats.
Yep.
Uh, don't come at me
Also
saying that Ohio State is your offense that you want to try to stop.
also, it's like, I don't know if you watched the Ohio State Texas game, but why was it only 14? It's because they knew they didn't need to score more than that. It was literally run the ball, don't put it in harm's way, and run the clock out because Arch Manning's that bad at quarterback, and
But
Texas offense is that bad. So I mean, that's why the score was only 14.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But Bevo's bodyguard. I want you to be back in here, and with all the hate, because I appreciate it. I love it. I
Yeah,
mean,
same.
I'm
Sure.
not gonna. I know it's kind of pointless at times. I think it's silly, and I get annoyed with anybody doing it. Even Oklahoma fans are really annoying when they get just chirping. But I'm all for it, and so man, I mean, if show up on Red River Week too. Don't be backing down once Red River Week gets here, especially if Texas were to be really close against Florida, or heaven forbid they lose. I don't want them to lose against Florida because I want Texas at their best. So yeah, make
I
make
don't
sure
think
you
they'll
jump
lose
back
against.
in here because I want you in here all week on Red River Week, and giving us hell, because we'll give it right back.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it, and it's all like, yeah. I'm all for talking and stuff, as long as people don't get personal and, like, start acting personal attacks. I think that's a little ridiculous, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
definitely,
wound up. I
definitely
get
no.
wound up, but it's all in good spirit of, like, it's just sports and it's our teams we root for, but never personal things. Like, it's not
Yeah,
that
I never condone any kind of personal attacks or anything like that.
serious.
Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, yeah, I mean, keep it cordial. I mean, we're fighting about sports, like this
Right.
doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, it's not going to save you from anything other than maybe a little bit of depression because we hold it to such a higher standard than we should. I see 6-2 Nightmare says, I hope Keontae Lewis gets more touches. Dude is a stud. Yes, I agree. I really want him to break out and be the player that I know he can be. Um, and also Reckham, Red Raider coming at you. A Red Raider fan in the chat, huh? I like that. I miss
Hey, they look
playing.
good, man.
I miss playing Texas Tech, and yeah, they look really good, especially
They
against
look good.
Utah. Heck yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited for them for sure. Let's see here. I see he even bounces back later on and says Texas already has an L and OU doesn't. And we'll see how. I mean, Michigan looked good against Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a serious team this year, a serious team, not like national championship contention or even. I don't even think they make the playoffs, but they're a real team, and Michigan handled business there pretty well. They struggled there for a little bit, but that's just because Nebraska's actually got talent now. So yeah, that was a fun one on the Bus and Bowl, and of course, rooting for now that I can get past Nebraska, I can root for Michigan for the rest of the season, and hope that they do well. I'm not allowed to root for them in the last game, even though I'm going to be pulling for them, just because my wife is a Buckeye, so I got to be careful. Let's see here. Modern Day Caveman is in the chat. I got to jump over to him. He's a regular. He says maybe it's about time the coaches need to improve, need to move on from Sexton, Taylor, Everett because they aren't violent players. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Well, Everett got hurt. Just he got rolled up on in
Yeah,
practice and tore his ACL. I mean, he just that's
Everett.
not really a.
I think Everett's fine. I do like Mikula better.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. My coolers are better. Yeah, he gives you
I
more.
hate I
Absolutely.
hate to say that. I hate to say that, because I like Troy Everett, as a leader, and
Mhm.
and what he's got. Man, I really do. I really do like it. Corey Week says so many people crying. So many people keep crying about the refs. Just like just move on from the game. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I do understand because the refs sucked. Um, now, I'm not gonna hide from that. They didn't suck for the reasons that a lot of Auburn fans are wanting to throw out there, but they did. They sucked. Uh, Kenneth Sellers, Ward Amigo. You know what? Any Auburn fans, I want you guys to take away from this game that you guys played really well against a good team,
Mhm.
and that was a different Auburn team than what we've seen in the last several seasons. So I like
They're better
I
in
like
Texas, in my opinion. I mean, I
yeah
just
I
don't
like
until
I
you
like
know.
what you're seeing there. I really do. They've got
I
some
think
good
they'd beat a
things to
lot of
look forward
teams.
to.
Yeah, I do. I think they
So
beat a lot of teams. Their
yeah,
defense is legit, man. They're good.
I think that Texas A&M matchup is going to be a really fun one to watch.
Yes. I meant Texas
Um,
A&M. I think I said Texas. They probably beat Texas too.
yeah. I mean, they probably would.
Just but yeah,
I
I
mean,
think they'll give A&M a problem, man. They're good up front, really good.
yeah. I think that's going to be a really good one, man. I think it's a lot of fun. And going back to him to he says I hope we make it to Atlanta for the SEC championship, and I hope Oklahoma does as well. Auburn will get the last laugh. I would love for that
That'd be
rematch
yeah.
because, like I said, I feel confident in Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma was the better team overall. I understand. I agree. Sucky officiating. Let's replay it. I really want that because I still take some things away from Oklahoma for the same aspect that man, if these things would have gone right, or maybe if these calls weren't made, what would the every penalty, every review always slows down the pace of the game. It slows down the tempo of the game on every aspect. And so you can sit here and act like,
Mhm.
well, if this would have happened, Auburn would have won. Well, no, because it's only one play that you're changing. It's not like it's the last play of the game, and if you would have flipped it, then it would have been different. It's like you're talking about something that happened in the second quarter, in the first quarter, in the third quarter. It's all over the place. So, I do think I think that Auburn can be a really good team. I saw a lot of really good things from Auburn, and I'm excited to see what they've got going on in the future for them. But
Yep.
Chad, you have anything else to add before we take off
No,
from here?
no. Thanks for
All
letting
right.
me jump on.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you jumping on. We had a little bit more to talk about too, so I appreciate that because I probably would have
Yeah.
had this over about 40 minutes ago, just because I was running out of things other than the fact that, man, I am irritated at how this game went down. I am, and to Bevo's point, yeah, Auburn has always been a good team. You can go back to week one when I saw them play against Baylor. I'm pretty sure I said something about that then. But anyways, no, I appreciate everybody for joining, everybody for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, help us keep on growing. If you want to help us a little bit further, you can tune in, or you can become a member for as low as $2.99 a month. Again, that's just by clicking that link down in the description below, or you can scan the QR code over on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. It's the greatest way to help us keep on growing and keep on supporting this channel over here. Of course, we have shows every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday post games. So we're kicking out a bunch of content, especially throughout football season. So if you want to support the channel, that is the best way to do it. And then, of course, you can also go down into the link in the description below for merchandise as well. We've got merchandise that you can also help support the channel that way as well. Appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. Appreciate Chad for jumping on here real quick here this afternoon as well. But we'll catch you all later. Boomer.